Everyone nowadays is talking about the metaverse. What could the metaverse become? And is the metaverse the next generation of computing and the internet? As a result, the metaverse, if it ends up working out and we end up actually spending our time in it, will have companies that dominate the metaverse. There's going to be a lot of companies, but there's going to be certain companies that dominate it and have a majority of market share, and as a result, have the majority of their share price allocated towards that market share, reflecting that upside in value. This is what happened with the internet. There's tons and tons of companies using the internet. In fact, I would say pretty much every company in the world today, like 99% of them, have to use the internet in some capacity. But Facebook, Google, Amazon, Netflix, these are the companies that ended up owning the internet and having the most value for a lot of people using the internet. What are going to be those companies in the metaverse? There's been a couple that we've thought about. Facebook, obviously, rebranding to Meta. They're going to try to do a big metaverse play. Unity Gaming, ticker symbol U. That's a huge infrastructure backbone software application for gaming, for what gaming could be like in the metaverse. And then we've seen some other stocks that have thrown out there, like Zoom. Zoom might introduce an entire new work metaverse. If people are already doing meetings remote, what if all of that was integrated into a metaverse that was built for work? Microsoft's obviously trying to do something. Google's trying to do something. There's a lot of companies that are trying to interact with the metaverse. What if Palantir is actually the sleeper metaverse stock out of all the companies that exist? I'm going to go over two reasons today, and I'll probably make videos more in the future as I start doing deep dives and thinking a little bit more deeply about the metaverse. But there's two fundamental reasons I believe that Palantir could actually be a stock for the metaverse. So before we get into those reasons, let's first define what the metaverse is. In its broadest, most simplest sense, the metaverse to me is a virtual reality world in which individuals will be doing activities they do in the real world, but spending that time in the virtual world, likely through a headset, through some form of goggles. So, for example, if you go to a concert in the real world with your friends, you can put on goggles, your friends can put on goggles, and you both can be in that same concert in the metaverse. Now, that will require a lot of computational technology, that will require a lot of cloud computing and processing to make two virtual figures feel as if they are in a new virtual world outside of the current reality of the world that we have. But it could be pretty cool if it happened. Right now, your friend may go to that concert and they post an Instagram video about it, and you experience that concert through Instagram. And that's sort of like version one of what the metaverse could become. Version whatever that is the true metaverse could be you and your friend actually being at that concert in the same time, even if you're not physically at that concert, given the quality of what these virtual reality headsets could become. I think that there is a world in which gaming likely is the winner of the metaverse. Do I actually think in the next 10 years people will be spending their time in the metaverse more from their phone, right? So a considerable amount of time using applications on the metaverse, which is what's going to make the metaverse valuable, because there's going to be developers that build apps on the metaverse, just like developers build apps on your iPhone, which makes your iPhone or your Android phone very valuable because it has a lot of stuff that has your attention. I don't know. I really don't know, because at that point, that type of device would likely not replace your iPhone, but it would have some, it would take away some time from you using your iPhone, right? And that time is obviously very valuable to the business model of the metaverse in a variety of ways. I do think gaming is going to be a big part of it, particularly because gamers are already immersed in this experience in their screen for hours at a time if you're in the gaming niche and in the gaming world. So if you could just put on a headset and literally be in Call of Duty or literally be in Fortnite, and I know people don't play Fortnite anymore, but I thought Fortnite was pretty cool when it came out, but now it's like, I guess it's dead, then that could be a pretty cool experience. So I think gaming will be the first ultimate winner and like beginning of what the metaverse could become, and then the metaverse could expand. But in a nutshell, that's what the metaverse could be: a virtual reality world in which people live inside of it and do things that they do in the real world for the same experiences, but through a virtual sense. All right, how does Palantir play a role in this? Now, if you don't know what Palantir is, it's a data analytics software. It primarily is trying to become the modern operating system of the enterprise, but that doesn't do it justice. If you really want to know what Palantir is, you can watch some of my videos or go to their website. They are trying to create the backbone of every single industries and companies within those industries data, meaning you have a ton of data, you don't know how to make sense of it. Palantir comes in, they integrate their highly sophisticated software. The name of it, the flagship software, is called Foundry, and then they try to make sense of that data at scale. Now, you may be thinking, how does this interact with the metaverse? Two reasons. Number one, data engineering and artificial intelligence in the metaverse will be at levels that we cannot comprehend. Already, companies are having a hard time managing the data in their regular companies, right? They get a ton of data from customers, ton of data from accounting, ton of data from sales. They also have to use machine learning to actually optimize all that stuff. They have to use artificial intelligence to make sure their advertising is good. Then they have to make sense of all the decisions that they have to make with the data in regards to their supply chain and logistics. Palantir has tons and tons of case studies, and that's why they're ultimately becoming very valuable right now, because they've been able to solve all those integrated problems within the fabric of an organization. But those problems pale in comparison to the problems that metaverse companies will have. And a lot of these companies won't just be the Facebooks and Googles of the world. I think a lot of these companies will truly be startups, which is why Foundry for Builders, which is Palantir's initiative to actually work with startups, I think is a fantastic idea, because they're getting firsthand experience of working with the next generation of companies that are likely going to build the metaverse over the Facebooks and Googles. Those companies are going to have a lot of data. And the reason for this is you kind of have to think a little bit more about what data engineering looks like in the metaverse. There is data coming from so many different angles. So let's take a hypothetical example. Let's say you're walking in a park in the metaverse. There is data around all the objects in that park and why those objects are in those certain locations. Like a swing set is in a certain location because we know what a swing set looks like at a park. Well, it has to be in that location for a certain reason, and there has to be data to be able to match why that swing set is there. But when you, the virtual avatar in the metaverse, moves in a certain way, then the swing set might have to move in a certain way. So there's certain dimensional relationships that happen within objects in the metaverse that have to be accounted for from a data perspective. The business model of the metaverse will likely be some form of advertising for at least some startups, which means there will need to be advertisements and algorithms that actually are able to show the billboard for Louis Vuitton in a park. I don't know why Louis Vuitton would market in a park, but let's say that's the case, and there's going to be data coming from that. And there's just data coming from tons and tons of different angles. I'm going to read a little bit from this article that I found that I'll put in the description that I thought was good. The metaverse will capture masses of data, mine it, and act almost instantly. The tools that the more traditional enterprises of today are using will not be good enough. And having an on-premise architecture will certainly not be scalable to tap into the resources acquired for the metaverse. That means there's going to need to be external partners that work with a lot of these companies. And a lot of times the metaverse is referred to as being decentralized, which means a lot of people are going to work together with it anyway. And I'll talk about that in a second. Which means Palantir, to me, could play a very big role in helping companies understand their data. It's not that these companies are going to have a lot of data that they're creating and they're not going to know what that data means. Like, obviously, you're going to know what the data of the swing set and the advertisement in relationship to itself means. The question is, how do you make sense of all of that data and synthesize it at scale in order to produce business outcomes? So this is what Palantir is doing for the modern enterprise. You have tons of things in your supply chain, tons of things in marketing and sales and finance. You put all of it together in a centralized operating system and use very specific machine learning and artificial intelligence and edge artificial intelligence, like really, really complex technical algorithms to make sense of that data and offer a business recommendation. It is why Palantir also works with the government, and literally in real time, soldiers are using Palantir software to make decisions that could result in life or death. This means that Palantir software is at a different level when it comes to how data is mined, engineered, and ultimately understood. And I think in the metaverse, there's going to be a lot of data that has to be understood. Once that data is integrated within an organization, they can make sense of it themselves. But what we've seen with Palantir Foundry is they have a software that is dedicated to make sense of that data. So yes, Facebook, for example, may know what to do with a lot of these things. Facebook's a very big company. Facebook knows how to do things. But a lot of modern enterprises are big, they're also bureaucratic, and they don't know how to make sense of a lot of things, even though they have a lot of things. This is why Mark Zuckerberg, when he was asked if he knows about Palantir Foundry, he said yes. This was in 2018 on a Senate committee hearing. This is why we saw that Facebook has job applications. I did a video on that. I'll leave it in the description, in which they're asking for people to be skilled in Palantir Foundry. Why? Because Facebook is likely using Palantir Foundry and their data analytics software for some of the things that they are doing. Even though Facebook is one of the biggest companies in the world, they have all the internal tools they need. External services like Palantir and the data analytics tools that they provide could be the backbone for a lot of these organizations. And I think that will also translate to the metaverse. AI is also a big part of this. So reading from this article, AI will of course be the backbone of the metaverse, being able to interpret real-time data to actionable results. Specifically in the metaverse, we expect many things to be event-driven. walk up to the door and open or ask for a passcode. That's what I meant by event-driven, as in you're in the park, you do something, and things automatically and immediately change. It's not a question of how do they change, right? That's what the companies are going to be coding themselves to be able to figure out. It is more so a question of what do we do when we get all that data from making 2 steps forward in that park in order to figure out how to interpret that data to enact things in the metaverse and make sense of it. That's where Palantir is going to play a role with helping enterprises understand what to do with this. The AI on our iPhones where Siri predicts our behaviors, usage of apps based on the time of day would be far too simple for the metaverse. Meaning, when you get in your car, right, and like Siri says, hey, do you want to go to this Dunkin' Donuts because you don't go to that Dunkin' Donuts every day, and your iPhone has like managed to learn that about you, that artificial intelligence is not going to be what the metaverse operates in. The metaverse is going to have a totally different set of artificial intelligence. And again, companies are going to have this data. They're going to have some general AI in terms of how to make sense of this data, but a lot of that data is going to be meaningless. It's going to be a lot of gold that could result in a lot of decisions, and you're going to need a refinery to make sense of that goal. And the best analytical tools that exist, like Palantir, in my opinion, could actually go into that organization, partner with them, explain to them what this means for their data, implement their entire software as a centralized operating system so the engineers can build the platforms that are going to be mainstream in the metaverse on top of a data analytics undergirding the foundation of that software in the metaverse, and then actually be able to implement those AI event-driven decisions at scale. Each event that has occurred in real life may need to capture in our metaverse collection. The AI models will learn from these events and mimic them in the real world. This could mean instead of a planned meeting with your friends on a Saturday night, there may be a meeting arranged instantaneously in the virtual world by mimicking that scenario. This will require clever, more sophisticated machine learning algorithms and more data capturing using something like a Palantir. Okay, second reason why I think Palantir could be super important for the metaverse. Now, this is something to understand and break down in order to understand the real reason of what I'm talking about. Most of the metaverse is going to be crypto-oriented, I think. I might be wrong on that, but at least the general trend from the community that I'm getting of builders and entrepreneurs that are building the metaverse are Web3 startups. Now, you may be asking yourself, Amit, what is Web3? In its easiest sort of explanation, we've had Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 eras of the internet. Web 1 was more so publishers publish content, people can consume content, right? So this is when you got websites that published articles. Web 2 was creators and consumers engage in the internet. So I can create a video on YouTube, you can consume that video. That is what is referred to as Web 2, create, consume. Web 3 is referred to as create, consume, and own, meaning you can create content, you can consume content, but the platforms by which you publish that content on and then consume that content on is actually decentralized, meaning there is not a centralized authority like Google or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat actually harnessing those massive amounts of data from user-generated content and then being able to be the beneficiaries of it as a centralized organization, because they have all that data, right? Obviously, all the value to Facebook comes from the fact that Facebook is the center place where everything is posted, which is why Facebook has all the upside in terms of making sense of all the data they get. Web3 startups are decentralized. And when you have a decentralized nature towards building your company, it means you don't have the traditional one centralized source at the center actually managing everything, but rather you have blockchain technology that allows you to be able to fund your operations and do your operations in a way in which many developers can contribute to it. That's why a lot of people hate Facebook's version of the metaverse, because it's just Meta, Facebook, owning everything. And then some people get some bits and pieces here. Same thing with Apple and the App Store. But with a truly decentralized platform, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies would be able to work together into, let's say, building the next startup for the metaverse, the next Facebook for the metaverse, and all these people would collectively own the metaverse or that company in the metaverse. And not just the developers and creators, the developers and engineers, also the users, right? Users that actually spend their time in the metaverse can make money off the metaverse. And we're seeing this already in apps like Axie Infinity, where users are winning money, prizes in the metaverse by just spending their time playing, right? So you're literally playing a game. Like, how many people get paid to play video games? Unless you're like a famous Twitch streamer, that doesn't happen, right? You just pay with your time. But in Axie Infinity, you get to actually get paid just for playing their video games. And their video games are pretty good, so that's why people play, and that's why people make money. Now, you may be asking, Amit, how do people make money just by playing in the metaverse? Well, or playing video games based on a Web3 startup. The way this happens is the reason why I think Palantir is going to win. A lot of these startups and a lot of these companies, because they're using blockchain technology ultimately to build the fabric and the infrastructure of what their company could become, don't use traditional means of raising capital or financing. What they really do is offer a token. It is called tokenization. Think of it as like, if I have this YouTube channel and I offered an emit token, people could buy people could buy it for like $1. And if like this channel goes to like 75 million subscribers, that token that you bought for $1 is probably more valuable, right? Because this channel is obviously a lot more valuable at that point, which means that token would appreciate in value, kind of like a share price, almost like a stock price. A lot of cryptocurrencies are now oriented around how Web3 is going to be collectively owned. Because if there is a Web3 startup and that Web3 startup issues a token and anyone can buy the token and anyone can do things to earn more tokens, i.e. play games for Axie Infinity and they get more of the Axie Infinity token. And as Axie Infinity token appreciates in value, that Axie Infinity token is going to be more valuable to that person, which is why they're going to spend more time with them. So there's like this symbiotic relationship between people spending time on a platform, gaining something that's monetary, which means they actually get rewarded for their time, and then the network ultimately becoming that much more powerful because now there's a true incentive for people to interact with that game or that app because they're actually getting something. They're not just having their data mined. They're not just being sold advertising. They're actually literally getting money for being part of that network and that ecosystem. As a result, cryptocurrencies power the backbone for a lot of these Web3 startups. A lot of these Web3 startups in the metaverse are already rooted within Web3, meaning they're decentralized, they have a blockchain technology approach to them. A lot of developers are leaving Facebook and Google. There's been tons of articles for it for Web3 and crypto startups. So we will see if people make the metaverse a truly decentralized world in which there is not a centralized authority. And if there are companies that are operating in it, those companies have tokens that can be collectively owned by anyone that participates in the metaverse itself or in the specific company that plays a role in that metaverse. How does Palantir play into this? Foundry for crypto. That is what I am super bullish on when it comes to the metaverse. Why? Because crypto is really weird and scammy and people lose a lot of money, and this crazy couple just stole like $4 billion the other day. They got it seized. Like, crypto is not an easy place for companies to be able to make sense of. They not only are more regulations coming with anti-money laundering and KYC laws, but there's so much like density of just what happens in cryptocurrencies because the tech is not as mature yet. Like blockchains and stuff apparently can still become hacked, even though it's this public ledger that's like truly decentralized. As a result, Foundry for crypto to me, and the way it was introduced a couple months ago, was it will be serving startups that are using cryptocurrencies to make sure they can stop fraud, they can detect risk, and they can have an efficient and effective mechanism to actually distribute whatever they need to do in a decentralized way. If the future truly is decentralized, and if cryptocurrency startups are going to start gaining leverage by having users engage with their companies, not by giving them followers, but giving them real money in the form of a token, then that means those tokens need to be heavily distributed in a way that don't screw up the process of getting the token, receiving the token, selling the token. Those tokens need to be safe. They need to be secure. Someone shouldn't be able to hack your Discord and immediately take your token. There needs to be a variety of mechanisms that are put in place in order to stop that stuff from happening. And the reason I'm spending some time on this explaining this is because most people think of the metaverse as decentralized. They don't think of it as Google or Facebook or Amazon. Like they're probably going to play a role because those companies have billions of dollars, but they really do feel there's going to be a new young kid who's dropped out of college right now who's building the next version of what the metaverse could become. And that's going to be done on blockchain technologies that's decentralized, that gives everyone an opportunity to participate in the upside value of the metaverse. This is the whole concept of building communities around NFTs so that when NFTs appreciate, people get the upside value in the NFTs themselves. As a result, there will need to be a centralized operating system within those companies, which I think is Foundry for crypto, that allows Foundry to integrate with all of the elements of how a cryptocurrency startup or company is using their cryptocurrency tokens, whatever they issue out, in order to make sure it's safe, effective, and reliable. It's just inevitable that Foundry for crypto, in my opinion, starts appealing to a lot more crypto companies because a lot of these crypto companies suck when it comes to privacy and safety and regulations. I mean, Coinbase, people have had money hacked out of it, and you think it's like Coinbase, it's like an $80 billion company. So at that point, I think if the metaverse is truly decentralized and the metaverse has a lot of data engineering and AI at scale, and the metaverse has cryptocurrencies that are powering the foundation for how people are engaging in the metaverse through these Web3 startups, then I think Palantir can play an amazing role in optimizing data, collecting data, making sense of data, using machine learning AI algorithms to actually interpret that data, and providing Foundry for crypto for all these startups to make sure that the value of their networks are sustained because they are reliable and safe long term. Those are my thoughts on Palantir and the metaverse. Let me know what you guys think. Looking forward to reading the comments. This is a very exciting topic, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. My name is Mitt. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.